Hello students, how are you? I hope you are very safe at home. In last two lectures we have discussed some portion of human digestion and absorption. Let us continue the topic. Some more points from previous portion. Parotid salivary glands. Parotid salivary glands open into buccal cavity. They open into buccal cavity. Buccal cavity at upper second molar teeth. Upper second molar teeth. And the next point is submaxillary glands. Submaxillary glands open into buccal cavity at lower central incisor. Central incisor teeth. Lower central incisor teeth. And the third point is sublingual salivary glands. Sublingual glands open into buccal cavity at below tongue. At below tongue. I think our last concept is pancreas. Pancreas is heterocrine gland. It is nothing but it is also named as a mixed gland. At the same time, it is a compound gland. Compound gland. The pancreas lies at two limbs of C-shaped duodenum. I will show the location of the pancreas with a diagram very soon. Please wait. Two limbs of C-shaped duodenum. And the most important point regarding pancreas is the pancreatic juice. The pancreatic juice is considered as a complete digestive juice. It is a complete digestive juice. The reason is the enzymes present in the pancreatic juice can digest all the components of the food like carbohydrates, proteins and fats. For example, in case of mouth, only carbohydrates are digested in the buccal cavity. In the stomach, only proteins are digested. But in small intestine, all the components of the food, carbohydrates, proteins and fats are digested by the enzymes of pancreatic juice. So, all the enzymes present in the pancreatic juice. So, it is called as a complete digestive juice, right? The next digestive gland is liver. Liver is the largest gland in the body. It is the largest digestive gland. Largest digestive gland. It weighing about 1.2 to 1.5 kg. Around 1.5 kg weight. It lies at the left side of the abdominal cavity just below the diaphragm in adult human being. The liver has two lobes. It has two lobes. Observe the diagram, please. It has two lobes. This is right lobe. And this is left lobe. Right lobe is larger than left lobe. These two lobes are connected by a kind of ligamentum. It is named as falciform ligament. Ligament is a kind of connective tissue. It is a dense regular connective tissue ligament. So, falciform ligament joins right lobe with left lobe. Right lobe is larger than the left lobe. Each lobe of the liver is made up of with hexagonal hepatic lobules. Hexagonal hepatic lobules are the structural and functional units. These are the structural and functional units of liver. These are considered as structural and functional units of the liver because the liver is made up of with hexagonal hepatic lobules. Come to the diagram. Yeah, this is hexagonal hepatic lobule. The hexagonal hepatic lobule externally covered by a thin connective tissue sheath. This thin connective tissue sheath is named as Glissen's capsule. Glissen's capsule. The Glissen's capsule is a thin connective tissue sheath. Connective tissue sheath. This Glissen's capsule only found in mammalian liver. It is found only in mammalian liver. Mammalian means mammals, milk giving animals or milk secreting animals. Next, each hepatic lobule has several hepatic cords. These hepatic cords are made up of with hepatic cells or hepatocytes. The cells of the liver are nothing but hepatocytes. These hepatocytes are arranged in the form of bundles. Each bundle is named as hepatic cord. This is hepatic cord. Hepatic cord has hepatocytes. Hepatocytes are the cells of the liver. Next, all these hepatic cords lies around the central vein. This is central vein. The central vein is a branch of hepatic vein. It's a branch of hepatic vein. The hepatic vein carries deoxygenated blood from liver to the heart. Then, each hepatic lobule has very important structure. It is named as portal triad. Portal triad. The portal triad has three important components. This is a branch of hepatic artery. Hepatic artery. And this is a branch of interlobular bile duct. Interlobular bile duct. And this is a branch of hepatic portal vein. Hepatic portal vein. Hepatic portal vein. And from this, various kinds of blood vessels connected with portal triad. So, from these portal triad, the blood vessels enters into the spaces in between the hepatic cords. These blood vessels are named as sinusoids. Sinusoids are the blood-filled cavities or blood-filled spaces. These are blood-filled spaces present in between the hepatic cords. In these sinusoids, there are macrophages. These are hepatic macrophages. Hepatic macrophages. Along with the blood vessels, some other structures also present. Yeah, these are named as bile canaliculi. Bile canaliculi. And in the sinusoids, adipocytes also present. These are adipocytes. Yeah. And the name of the diagram is TS of mammalian liver. TS of mammalian liver. Yeah. This is called as a hexagonal hepatic lobule, which is considered as the structural and functional unit of the liver. Study of liver is called as hepatology. So the term hepatic related to liver. Then come to duct system. Duct system of liver, pancreas and gallbladder. Duct system of liver, pancreas and gallbladder. I told you already, the liver is the largest gland in the body. It has two lobes, right lobe and left lobe. At right lobe, one very important structure lies. Yeah, it is named as gallbladder. Each lobe of the liver has one important duct. Yeah, the ducts of the liver called as hepatic ducts. Duct of the liver is named as hepatic duct. This is left hepatic duct and this is right hepatic duct. So the liver secretes bile juice. The bile juice passes through the two hepatic ducts, eventually enters into the duct of the gallbladder. The duct of the gallbladder is a cystic duct. Cystic duct. Now the cystic duct and duct of the gallbladder unite and form common bile duct. This is called common bile duct. The common bile duct this is pancreas. I told you already, pancreas is the second largest gland, which lies in between the two limbs of the duodenum, particularly C-shaped duodenum. The duct of the pancreas. The duct of the pancreas is a pancreatic duct. Pancreatic duct. Now the duct of the pancreas joins with common bile duct and forms the hepatopancreatic duct. This is hepatopancreatic duct. It is generally called as a common hepatopancreatic duct. The common hepatopancreatic duct formed by the union of common bile duct with the pancreatic duct. The pancreas has two types of ducts. Duct of Santorini. Duct of Santorini is a non-functional duct. It is a non-functional duct which directly leads into the duodenum. But one more duct is there, that is called as duct of Santorini. Duct of Wirsung. Duct of Wirsung is the main pancreatic duct. This duct of Wirsung only joins with common bile duct and forms the common hepatopancreatic duct. It is also named as hepatopancreatic ampulla or ampulla of Vater. Ampulla of Vater. Then the hepatopancreatic duct leads into the duodenum. As you know, duodenum is the proximal part of a small intestine. But the common hepatopancreatic duct opening into the duodenum is guarded by a sphincter that is called as the sphincter of Wardi. Wardi is the scientist name Ruggero Wardi used this word. So it is named as sphincter of Wardi. Ruggero Wardi is Italian physician. So the sphincter of Wardi guards the opening of common hepatopancreatic duct into the duodenum. Duodenum is the proximal part of the small intestine, and one more sphincter associated with the duct system of liver, pancreas and gallbladder. The common bile duct leads into the pancreatic duct. The opening of the common bile duct into the pancreatic duct is guarded by one more sphincter. This is called as a sphincter of Boyden. Sphincter of Boyden. The sphincter of Boyden is the sphincter which guards the opening of a common bile duct into the pancreatic duct. Yeah, this is the duct system of the liver, pancreas and gallbladder. Liver secretes bile juice. The bile juice is yellowish green colored fluid. It is yellowish green colored fluid. Bile has no enzymes. Bile has no enzymes, but it has bile pigments. It has bile pigments. After a few minutes, I will discuss about these bile pigments. Liver secretes around 700 to 1000 ml of bile per day, and the secreted bile juice passes through the hepatic ducts, eventually enters into the gallbladder. Yeah, come to gallbladder. Gallbladder is a green colored sac like structure. It is a green colored sac like structure which stores bile. As I told you, the liver secretes bile juice. The bile juice passes through the two hepatic ducts, finally enters into the gallbladder. So the bile juice is temporarily stored in the gallbladder. Gallbladder is of 8 centimeters long and 2 centimeters wide. It has the capacity of storing around 30 to 50 ml of bile at a time. In the gallbladder, electrolytes and water are reabsorbed, thereby concentrating the bile approximately 10 to 15 times. Concentrating the bile approximately 10 to 15 times because water and electrolytes from the bile juice are reabsorbed into the blood, thereby concentrating. Now come to functions of liver. Liver performs various activities like storage, synthesis and secretion of various substances. Yeah, let us discuss the various functions of the liver. Liver secrete bile juice. It secrete bile juice. Bile juice has no enzymes, but it has bile salts. Bile salts are taurocholates. Bile salts are the taurocholates and glycocholates. Glycocholates of sodium and potassium. These bile salts are produced from a bile acid that is called as a cholic acid. Cholic acid is the bile acid produced by the or synthesized by the liver. It is synthesized by the liver. So from the cholic acid, bile salts are produced. The cholic acid predominantly made up of with two amino acids. One is taurine and second one is glycine. Yeah, these are the amino acids. Bile salts play a very important role in the emulsification of the fats. Emulsification of fats. And one more function is bile pigments. Bile pigments also produced in the liver. There are three bile pigments: bilirubin, and biliverdin, and one more thing, urochrome. These bile pigments gives a color to the fecal matter and urine. Biliverdin and bilirubin are excreted along with the fecal matter. But the urochrome excreted along with the urine. Urine is yellow in color because of urochrome. Fecal matter also yellow in color because of bilirubin and biliverdin. So bilirubin, biliverdin released into the duodenum. So through the digestive tract, finally it is excreted out. But urochrome is excreted by the kidney via urine. These bile pigments are produced during destruction of dead RBC. During destruction of dead or old RBC. The lifespan of RBC is 120 days. So after completion of the lifespan, mostly RBC are destroyed in the spleen. So the spleen is called as graveyard of RBC, but some extent destroyed in the liver. So during destruction of the dead RBC, these bile pigments are produced. Second function, liver play a very important role in carbohydrate metabolism. Metabolism is a term which is defined as the sum total of chemical reactions occurs in the body of living organisms is termed as metabolism. Metabolism is of two types, anabolism and catabolism. We have learnt in first year. Anabolism is energy making and catabolism is a energy breaking process. Carbohydrate metabolism like glycogenesis. Glycogenesis means conversion of glucose into glycogen. And second one is glycogenolysis. Glycogenolysis means conversion of glycogen into glucose. And gluconeogenesis. Gluconeogenesis means formation of carbohydrates or formation of glucose from non-carbohydrates. Gluconeogenesis means formation of glucose from non-carbohydrates like amino acids and fatty acids. So, and lactic acid, amino acids and fatty acids are converted into glucose. So the formation of glucose from non-carbohydrates is called as gluconeogenesis, and it also play a role in lipogenesis, synthesis of fats. So glycogenesis, glycogenolysis, gluconeogenesis and lipogenesis, these are belongs to carbohydrate metabolism. Liver also play a vital role in lipid metabolism. like synthesis of cholesterol, synthesis of cholesterol and the production of triglycerides or formation of triglycerides. Triglycerides are the true fats. These are the true fats. But cholesterol is derived fat. It is derived fat. So, liver also play vital role in the synthesis of cholesterol and the production of triglycerides. Come to next function, liver also play a role in deamination. Deamination of proteins. What is meant by deamination? Deamination means removal of amino group. Removal of amino group from amino acid. From amino acid, thereby, so it helps in deamination of the proteins and conversion of the ammonia into urea, which means urea synthesized in the liver. It is synthesized by a very important cycle that is called as ornithine cycle. Ornithine cycle, about which we will discuss in excretion lesson, ornithine cycle. So, by ornithine cycle, the urea is synthesized from the ammonia and the carbon dioxide. So, liver also play very important role in urea synthesis. Generally, mammals are ureotelic animals. We excrete urea. Come to next function, lactic acid. You know, lactic acid is a non-carbohydrate. The lactic acid is formed during anaerobic respiration of muscle contraction. This lactic acid finally converted into glucose. Finally converted into glucose by gluconeogenesis process by very important cycle that is named as a Cori cycle. By Cori cycle, the lactic acid converted into glucose by gluconeogenesis. By gluconeogenesis. Yeah, about Cori cycle we will discuss in muscular contraction lesson. Next, liver also play a very important role in a detoxification. Detoxification of toxins. In the hepatocytes, there is a smooth endoplasmic reticulum. The smooth endoplasmic reticulum present in the hepatocytes play a very important role in detoxification. The toxic materials are metabolized into non-toxic substances in the liver, which entered into the gut along with the food materials. Liver acts as first check post. It acts as the first check post in the body because it prevents the entry of toxic materials into general blood circulation. Whatever we drink and whatever we eat, that first enters into the liver via hepatic portal vein. Hepatic portal vein. The hepatic portal vein, it is a connecting link between gut and liver. So, before released into the general blood circulation, the first enters into the liver via hepatic portal vein. So, then the liver detoxifies the toxic substances present in the liquids and the solids with the help of a smooth endoplasmic reticulum. The smooth endoplasmic reticulum found in hepatocytes. It is a cell organelle. And one more thing, in chronic alcoholics. Chronic alcoholics. Chronic means the person having a prolonged habit of consuming alcohol. In chronic alcoholism, the liver detoxifies the toxic materials present in the alcohol to some extent. So, this is the reason why the liver is the first and most organ which is affected by the alcohol. The toxic materials are present in the alcohol. And one more thing, sometimes certain fungal toxins toxins may enter into the body along with food materials named as aflatoxins. Aflatoxins are the chemical carcinogens. These are the chemical carcinogens. Carcinogen is a cancer causing agent. So it is a chemical carcinogen which is a cancer causing agent. This aflatoxin is produced by certain fungi named as Aspergillus flavus. So these aflatoxins are generally metabolized by the liver into some non-toxic substances to some extent. If these fungal toxins are continuously enters into the body, then it leads to liver cancers. Come to next function. Liver also play a very important role in thermogenesis. Thermogenesis means the production of heat. Production of heat. So by producing heat, the liver acts as a thermoregulatory organ. Thermoregulatory organ. Why it is called a thermoregulator organ? You know, excess amount of glucose present in the blood is immediately converted into glycogen. The glycogen is animal starch. So excess glucose is stored in the form of glycogen in the liver. So the liver has more amount of glucose. That's why more amount of heat is generated. Thereby it acts as a thermoregulator organ. And one more example also there. Skeletal muscles also act as thermoregulator organs. So like skeletal muscles, the liver too act as thermoregulatory organ. And come to next function. Liver act as a erythropoietic organ. Erythropoietic organ. Erythropoietic means production of RBC. Production of RBC. So liver acts as erythropoietic organ in fetus, in infants or in fetus. It acts as erythropoietic organ. Liver also acts as erythroclastic organ. Erythroclastic organ. The dead RBC are destroyed in the liver to some extent. So destruction of RBC, destruction of dead RBC takes place in liver. So thereby the liver acting as erythroclastic organ. Next, liver synthesizes certain plasma proteins. Certain plasma proteins named as albumins, globulins, and there is an anticoagulant called as heparin, and blood clotting factors like fibrinogen and prothrombin. Yeah, these are the various kinds of plasma proteins synthesized by the liver. Albumins play a very important role in the maintenance of blood plasma volume. Plasma volume, about which we have discussed already in blood portion. Globulins are the antibodies. These are immunoglobulins. These are immunoglobulins. They produce antibodies. Heparin is an anticoagulant. It is an anticoagulant, prevents clotting of blood, which is naturally found in blood. Fibrinogen and prothrombin both are blood clotting factors. Both are blood clotting factors. And the last function of the liver is Kupffer cells. Yeah, Kupffer cells are the hepatic macrophages. These are hepatic macrophages. Macrophages are modified monocytes of the blood. So these hepatic macrophages are nothing but Kupper cells. These Kupper cells are found in the sinusoids. Sinusoids of the liver, as I told you already, the sinusoids are the blood vessels which are present in between the hepatic cords. So these are also named as hepatic macrophages. Kupper cells play a very important role in phagocytosis. So they prevent the entry of pathogens into the livers, and they eat worn out RBC, WBC and bacteria. They eat worn out RBC, WBC and bacteria. Yeah, students, our next concept is histology of alimentary canal. The wall of alimentary canal or gut has 4 layers. These 4 layers are named as serosa, muscularis externa, submucosa and mucosa. Serosa, muscularis externa, submucosa and mucosa. Come to the diagram. Outermost layer of the alimentary canal is called as serosa. Serosa is nothing but a visceral peritoneum. It is nothing but a visceral peritoneum. The peritoneum is a kind of simple squamous epithelium, because in the coelom, the mesoderm is split into 2 peritoneal layers. Inner visceral peritoneum, outer splanchnic peritoneum. So from that part, serosa is called as visceral peritoneum. Serosa has thin mesothelium. It has thin mesothelium. What is mesothelium? Mesothelium is the epithelium of. It is the epithelium of visceral organs. Epithelium of visceral organs. Yeah, epithelial tissues are of 3 types: epithelium, mesothelium and endothelium. Epithelium, epi means upon, covers the outer surfaces of the tissues or organs, but mesothelium present in the visceral organs. Endothelium found inside the blood vessels. The serosa also has small amount of connective tissues. It also has small amount of connective tissues. Connective tissues. Come to the second part, and the second layer is called as muscularis externa. The muscularis externa, it is the second layer of the alimentary canal. It is divided into 2 parts, because the muscularis externa is made up of with smooth muscles. There are 2 kinds of smooth muscles in the muscularis externa: outer longitudinal muscles and in circular muscles. Yeah, these are longitudinal muscles. Longitudinal muscles, outer longitudinal muscles, and inner circular muscles. Inner circular muscles. So these two are smooth muscles. These smooth muscles play a very important role in the peristaltic movements of the gut. Actually, these four layers are present from the esophagus till the rectum. So these four layers arranged one after the other. Outermost layer is serosa, inner to the serosa, smooth muscle layers, smooth muscles, outer longitudinal and inner circular muscles. In certain parts of alimentary canal, maybe a third kind of muscle layer is present, particularly in the stomach. That is called as oblique muscle. Oblique muscles are found in stomach. Oblique muscles are found in stomach. So particularly in the stomach, the arrangement of the muscle layers from outer to inner, outer longitudinal muscles, middle circular muscles, inner oblique muscles. Inner oblique muscles. So due to the presence of an extra muscle layer in the stomach, very powerful peristaltic movements occurs inside the stomach compared to the small intestine. So three muscle layers only found in the wall of the stomach. Then come to third layer. The third layer is called as submucosa. Submucosa. The submucosa is made of areolar connective tissue. It is made of areolar connective tissue. It also has blood vessels. It has a rich blood supply, blood vessels, lymph vessels, and nerves. So it has nerves, lymph vessels and blood vessels, and it is made of with areolar connective tissue. And the most important point, submucosa of duodenum. The submucosa of duodenum has Brunner's glands. Brunner's glands are a kind of intestinal glands. They secrete mucus. They secrete mucus. Come to the innermost layer. The innermost layer is called as mucosa. Mucosa. Mucosa is the innermost layer which lies towards the lumen of alimentary canal, or which lines the lumen of the alimentary canal. Mucosa. Come to mucosa. Mucosa of stomach. Mucosa of stomach has several folds. These folds are nothing but a gastric rugae. Gastric rugae. At the basis of the gastric rugae, there are numerous gastric glands. So remember one thing, the gastric glands are present on the mucosa of the stomach. Mucosa of the stomach. Come to small intestine, mucosa of the small intestine. Mucosa of a small intestine. On the mucosa of small intestine, a kind of intestinal glands named as crypts of Leberkuhn. Crypts of Leberkuhn. The crypts of Leberkuhn are the intestinal glands present on the mucosa of the small intestine. So these are the four layers: outer serosa, then muscularis externa, then submucosa and mucosa. So this is the arrangement of various layers on the wall of the gut. Mucosa of small intestine. Intestine has three layers. It has three layers. The first one is muscularis interna. muscularis interna. The muscularis interna has outer longitudinal muscles, inner circular muscles, muscularis interna. And the second one is very important layer, lamina propria. Lamina propria. The lamina propria is made of with areolar connective tissue. Areolar connective tissue. And third one is epithelium. Epithelium, particularly it is a columnar epithelium. Columnar epithelium. The arrangement of the layers on mucosa is outer muscularis interna, middle lamina propria, inner columnar epithelium. The inner columnar epithelium lies towards the lumen of the alimentary canal, or which lines the lumen of the alimentary canal. The columnar epithelium of the mucosa has finger-like projections called as villi, and the columnar epithelial cells of the villi has breast-bordered appearance, which is called as microvilli. Microvilli. So microvilli and villi, along with on the mucosa of the small intestine, there are several folds. These folds are named as plicae circularis. Plicae circularis are folds of Kerckering. Folds of Kerckering are valvulae conventus. Valvulae conventus. So plicae circularis, folds of Kerckering and valvulae conventus along with the villi and microvilli increases absorptive surface area of the small intestine. Yeah, these are the particularly found on the wall of the small intestine, particularly on the mucosal epithelium. Mucosal epithelium. In lamina propria, in case of stomach, gastric glands are present. In intestine, crypts of Lieberkühn present. In the lamina propria of the mucosa, gastric glands are present in the stomach. And in the intestine, crypts of Lieberkühn are present. Crypts of Lieberkühn are the intestinal glands. And one more important point. On the wall of the small intestine, there is a patch of lymphoid tissue. Patch of lymphoid tissue. This patch of lymphoid tissue is nothing but pairs of patches. Pairs of patches is a kind of lymphoid tissue present on the wall of small intestine, particularly which is located on the lamina propria of mucosa of small intestine. Then come to plexus. What is meant by plexus? Plexus is a branched network. It is a branched network of nerve fibers. It is a branched network of nerve fibers. The plexus are of two types. Very important points for exam point of view. The first one is plexus of Auerbach or myenteric plexus. Myenteric plexus. Plexus of Auerbach or myenteric plexus located on the muscular cord. Located on the muscular cord, they receive branches from both the divisions of autonomic nervous system. They receive branches from autonomic nervous system, from both the divisions of autonomic nervous system, like sympathetic branches and parasympathetic branches. What is the role of the myenteric plexus? These myenteric plexus controls peristaltic movements. They controls peristalsis of gut. And the second one is Meissner plexus. Meissner plexus or submucosal plexus. Submucosal plexus located on submucosa of wall of the gut. Submucosa, which means the lies in between muscularis externa and inner mucosa. The lies on the submucosa. So these are named as submucosal plexus. What is the main function of the submucosal plexus? They control secretions of digestive glands. They control secretions of digestive glands. Secretions of digestive glands. Yes, students, so far we have discussed the structure of the alimentary canal and associated glands, and let us go with the physiology of digestion. Physiology of digestion. Digestion is the process of conversion of a complex non-diffusible food materials into simple absorbable food materials. The process of digestion is accomplished by both mechanical and chemical processes. Both mechanical and chemical processes. The mechanical digestion occurs by cutting and chewing. Cutting and chewing by teeth and churning movements. Churning movements by peristalsis. By peristalsis. And whereas the chemical processes or chemical digestion occurs by the hydrolytic action of various digestive enzymes. Various digestive enzymes. So the process of digestion is accomplished by both mechanical and chemical processes. Mechanical digestion occurs by the cutting and chewing by the teeth and churning movements by the peristalsis. Peristalsis is the wavy-like contractions and relaxations of the muscles located on the wall of the gut, which begins from the esophagus and continued up to the rectum. And if the process of digestion occurs by the digestive enzymes, that is called as chemical processes. Let us start with digestion in buccal cavity. In buccal cavity. The buccal cavity play a very important role in two processes, in two things. The first one is it helps in mastication of the food. Mastication means the chewing of food. And the second one is it helps in swallowing of food. Swallowing nothing but deglutition. Deglutition. The alimentary canal is associated with 5 functions. The first thing is ingestion, then deglutition, then digestion, then absorption, and finally adjacent. Adjacent means defecation. These are the 5 functions of alimentary canal. So the buccal cavity play an important role in 2 things. First thing is mastication and the second one is swallowing. In buccal cavity, teeth and tongue along with the saliva thoroughly mix up the food, and the mucus present in the saliva acting as lubricant and adhering the masticated food materials into a ball-like structure that is named as a bolus. And the saliva secreted into the buccal cavity having electrolytes like sodium, potassium, chloride ions and bicarbonates. And it also has enzymes like ptyalin. Ptyalin nothing but salivary amylase. And lysozyme. The lysozyme is the antibacterial agents which prevents infections, which prevent entry of food along with the food materials. So these are the enzymes and these are the electrolytes. And saliva also having mucin. Mucin is a glycoprotein. It is a glycoprotein. So with the help of teeth and tongue, the food is thoroughly masticated and is thoroughly mixed up with saliva. Then the food becomes sticky and making into a ball-like process which is named as bolus. Then the bolus from the buccal cavity swallowed or degluted into the pharynx. From the pharynx it enters into the esophagus. The digestion of the food is initiated in mouth itself by the carbohydrate digesting enzyme that is named as ptyalin or salivary amylase. The salivary amylase also named as it is alpha amylase. Alpha amylase. The digestion initiated in mouth itself by salivary amylase enzyme. 30% of starch is digested in the mouth by the action of salivary amylase. The starch converted into maltose by ptyalin enzyme, and the pH of saliva is 6.8 pH. This is slightly alkaline. At this pH only, the salivary amylase enzyme is very active. When the pH decreases or increases, it becomes inactive. So the starch finally converted into maltose. It is the end product in the digestion of a buccal cavity. Only 30% of the starch is digested. Later the food is swallowed into the pharynx with the help of teeth and tongue. Then digestion in stomach. Digestion in stomach. The stomach stores food materials for 4 to 5 hours. In the stomach, the food is thoroughly mixed up with acidic gastric juice. Acidic gastric juice, and thereby facilitates digestion. Thereby facilitates the digestion by the enzymes. The pH of gastric juice is 1.8. 1.8, it is a highly acidic in nature, highly acidic. So the carbohydrate digesting enzymes become inactive because of hydrochloric acid in the stomach. In the stomach, only protein digestion takes place. As I told you already, there are 3 kinds of muscle layers on the wall of the stomach. So the churning movements, nothing but peristalsis, are so powerful in the stomach. So the food is thoroughly mixed up with the acidic gastric juice. The gastric glands secrete mucus plus bicarbonates. The bicarbonates are generally, it is a base. It acts as buffer. It acts as a buffer. Buffer means which neutralizes the acidic contents of the stomach, which prevents too much acidity in the stomach. So bicarbonate is a base which acts as buffer. which prevents too much acidity in the stomach, and mucus acts as lubricant. It acts as lubricant and protects the wall of the stomach from the excoriation. From the excoriation by hydrochloric acid. So it acts as lubricant and helps in easy passage of the food materials, and also protects the wall of the stomach from excoriation by the hydrochloric acid. I told you, after swallowing, the food enters into the pharynx, from the pharynx enters into the esophagus. In the esophagus, there is no significant digestive activity because no enzymes are produced by the esophagus. So the food is slowly enters into the stomach, and the further digestion of the food materials, particularly bolus, takes place in the stomach. The gastric glands secrete inactive enzymes. Inactive enzymes like prorenin and pepsinogen. Prorenin and pepsinogen. The prorenin and pepsinogen, on exposure to hydrochloric acid, converted into active hormones like renin and pepsin. Both are proteolytic enzymes. Both are proteolytic enzymes. If hydrochloric acid is absent, there is no conversion of inactive enzymes into active enzymes. Then the digestion of the proteins is affected. There is no proper digestion of the proteins. Inside the stomach, only protein digestion takes place because here the pepsin is very active in acidic medium. So the pepsin requires 1.8 pH. The 1.8 pH is optimal for the action of pepsin. Come to renin. Renin also named as a chymosin. Chymosin. The renin is a proteolytic enzyme which acts on milk protein, that is called casein. Casein is milk protein. Milk protein. The casein is soluble in water. It is soluble in water. The casein converted into para-casein by the enzyme renin. Here 1.8 pH. At 1.8 pH, the renin is a proteolytic enzyme, converts the casein into para-casein in the presence of calcium ions. The para-casein converted into calcium para-casinate. Calcium para-casinate. Calcium para-casinate means curdling of milk. Curdling of milk. The calcium para-casinate is insoluble in water. It is insoluble in water. Thereby, the milk proteins are converted into calcium para-casinate, which means the curdling of milk. But the most important thing is renin only found in the stomach of infants. It is found in stomach of infants. It is absent in adult stomach. Then the calcium para-casinate. Calcium para-casinate converted into proteases plus peptones by pepsin enzyme. The pepsin enzyme acts on calcium para-casinate, converts it into proteases and peptones. There is a difference between proteases and peptones. Proteases are the compounds formed during protein digestion which are larger than peptones. Peptones nothing but peptides. Nothing but peptides. So, casein protein digestion by renin is over. Then come to general proteins. proteins converted into proteases plus peptones by pepsin enzyme. So inside the stomach only protein digestion takes place. Only protein digestion takes place, no carbohydrate digestion and no lipid digestion. Hydrochloric acid play a very important role in the activation of the inactive enzymes into their active forms. And hydrochloric acid also kills bacteria which entered into the stomach along with the food materials. Yeah, with this digestion inside the stomach is over. And one more thing, chyme. Chyme is the partially digested. It is a partially digested acidic food. Partially digested acidic food is the chyme, which is the end product of stomach digestion. Students, I hope you are watching videos and these topics will not be repeated again. So this is a final teaching. So be careful while watching the videos and carefully observe the video and note down important points. That is mandatory for everyone and maintain short notes. Right? Thank you.